Hello and welcome to the first video for pretty much my comic book based sub channel. Again, sub channel from my actual main one being the Nasty Metal Productions. So this is a sub one strictly for basically what comic books or any sort of discussions about the world of comics and so on. And I figured, you know what? I've already have done technically a sort of introduction video into what what was my history with reading comics and what got me into it in the first place. I already did a videos, at least two videos for that, and you can find them on my main channel, that being Nasty Metal Productions. So if you want to really hear me about my love or my sort of what got me into comic books, go to there and you'll find the two videos are pretty much like what some of the last couple of videos I actually uploaded to that channel. So check it out because I'm not going to reiterate it. So from here, what I'm just going to go into is jump into what I have gotten recently. And we're definitely talking about very recently, maybe within the last several weeks. So again, some of these are definitely pickups from at least what I have of a shop here in town, but I have also got some that are from the mail-in. So we'll just start off with basically what will be the mail call portion of the video, and it's only what 5 comics here. One of them's very brand new. It is the very brand new issue, this month's brand new issue of Spawn. It is issue number 362. But this is the Jeff Monk variant for the comic, and I didn't get that. Honestly, I'm not really big into buying duplicates or let's say two different covers. It's just not, that's not really my speed. I want to have at least one copy unless something ends up happening. And let's say, for example, 356. Either way, this one, I decided, you know what, I just want to continue with just getting one copy because I don't want to fill up entire boxes full of the same issue. So I just want one of each copy. So that's thankfully when it comes to Spawn, there's all the variant covers, and usually I tend to like some of the variants more than I actually like the main ones. But there will be occasions where I will pick up the main one. But this one's the Jeff Monk variant, and since the artist who drew this ends up on Reddit, the minute he announced that he was going to contribute to a comic and obviously showing off the cover, and it's like, all right, that's the cover I'm going with. So that's why I went with. So this, of course, showed up today. So 362 for Spawn, Jeff Monk variant. Can't wait to check it out. I've really been digging the more recent stories, anyways. And so finally, this was actually a lot. This is actually all DC, but this was I couldn't pass up on the deal. But we already have this Deathstroke the Terminator issues 5 through 8. So therefore, there's at least the first 3 parts in the City of Assassins, the Deathstroke Batman story, and therefore getting the very first battle between Batman and Deathstroke. Again, of course, love the Mike Zeck covers. He's definitely become one of my favorite cover artists. I love his art. And by the way, this is the first appearance of Pat Tracy, who of course would become the basically the woman vigilante, making her first cover appearance on issue number 10. So there you go. Pretty much replacing Adrian Chase, which I'm not going to get into how Adrian Chase no longer became the vigilante. You'll have to kind of read his series to kind of understand, but it's not a very bright ending. Either way, they're not super high grade. They're definitely more low grade copies, but for like literally $5 on eBay for at least all 4 of these. And since me kind of getting into reading Deathstroke, I I could not pass on that deal. It was unpassable. So there you go. That's what I wanted. So that's all I have for the mail. Let's get into the actual recent pickups. I think since we've pretty much started with DC there, let's get into at least the DC pickups. And speaking of Deathstroke, well, let's get into the series that he was first introduced in, and these were obviously I got these as a 25% off sale that they have been doing recently. But we have the new Teen Titans issue number 21 and number 22. So here we have is the very first appearance of Brother Blood, aka Sebastian Blood. I know he's like Sebastian Blood, the fourth, whatever the hell, but this is his very first appearance. But it's also even the very first appearance for Baron Winters, who of course would be introduced through Wolfman's own newer sort of occult horror series, Night Force, which of course this comic at least includes a very short Night Force story to introduce that. So there's at least a couple first appearances here. These are not super high grade. They're definitely more close to maybe lower mid tier copies, but for $5, and of course being on a 25% off sale, you can't go wrong. And of course, here we have is the first cover appearance for Brother Blood, but this also serves as the first cameo for Starfire's sister, Blackfire. So this one's obviously a little slightly more better shape than, let's say, number 21, but obviously I could not pass up. And these being, of course, the newsstand editions. And, of course, can't go wrong with any Marv Wolfman and George Perez in general. So really was happy to get those. This is, of course, more recent again since yesterday, but since I have issue number 1 also being a newsstand, here we have is the Hawk and Dove number 2 from the 5-part miniseries issue. Again, cover art's drawn by Rob Liefeld and Carl Kessel. This would serve as the first cover appearance for Dawn Granger, who would be the replacement Dove for Hawk. Of course, Dove, the brother, and dying as part of the Crisis on Infinite Earths story. But I do have number 1, and that's also a fairly nice looking copy. Also newsstand, again, first appearance for Dawn Granger in that issue, and of course Kestrel, who was a villain for this series. But obviously this is actually fairly good looking. It's not a big spine roll. That's not a spine roll. That's just how the way this was printed and put together, because there's no spine roll at all on this issue. I looked at everything. It's definitely more of like a bordering on like a 9.2. So it's definitely a low near mint, but still $3 for it compared to like issue number 1, which I got like for $5 from the shop. So could not pass it up. Obviously can't. This is definitely not really anything major, but it's a great Gil Kane cover, but it is Checkmate number 8. This was actually $2 and was actually in very surprisingly pretty good looking condition, very sharp. Of course, these are all like late 80s to begin with, but it's obviously a great Gil Kane drawing of, well, Amanda Waller on the cover. So really, really cool there anyways. And I know that Checkmate is possibly going to get introduced maybe in the second season of Peacemaker, I think. So there's definitely some sort of value right now for maybe some Checkmate, but maybe not super. But once they do get introduced, there might be a great Amanda Waller cover, by the way. And again, Gil Kane, can't go wrong. And these are not, again, this was probably several weeks ago that I got these, but they had all 4 of them. They're not super high grade, but I want them anyways. But it's all 4 of the Deadshot miniseries from John Ostrander. So we have issues 1 through 4. Wanted to really dive into more of the Deadshot stuff, just like I was diving into more Deathstroke. I wanted to dive into Deadshot too, of obviously DC's high-paid mercenary killers and so on. Definitely some interesting characters, but again, just great Luke McDonnell art. But I just could not pass up, even if they're not in like super high grade. They're not even super low grade anyway. Just again, these are more closer to maybe mid-tier at best, very lower mid-tier. So it's somewhere around there. But for the prices they were selling them for, I could not pass it up. So yeah, just really happy, and really dark story, by the way. Very, very dark. It's of course coming out around the time that Alan Moore's The Killing Joke was released. So this is definitely in the beginning of some of the really dark stories that DC was exploring. But just really happy to have those. So there you go. That's all I have for right now to show for a DC. So let's get into some Marvel, but there's one really cool one because I was looking through one boxer in that shop that I'd never really had a whole lot of time to sit through, but this was like the back of the box, and I was really kind of happy to find these. But these are not, so far as I know, these are not super easy to find, but for the price, this was so easy. This was so good to pick up. This is, of course, Savage Dragon number 84. This is obviously from the early 2000s. This was like, what, $3 they were selling it for, and a fairly, it's not super near mint, but it's very close to a near mint. This is definitely almost 9 at best, but this is just one of the more lower print runs for the issue. Like what this had, like maybe 15 or at least close to 15,000 copies that was pressed for this. So this was lower than, let's say, compared to Savage Dragon number 1. So this was definitely low, but man, for $3, you cannot beat that. 2001, right when Image was really, when all the comic book shops were really asking for lower numbers for an Image title. So this was perfect. Perfect. Really happy to find at least a one of the more slightly scarce Savage Dragon comic. That's why I've heard for years, but I love the homage to the classic Bronze Age Marvel covers. Again, Eric Larson, just cannot go wrong. And I love Eric Larson, all the Image stuff. So, I mean, I showed Spawn, and I have a bunch of Spawn as it is. But Savage Dragon, especially when it comes to later stuff, these are not very easy to find. And so whenever I find one of these early 2000s or any 2000s issue for a really, really good price, you know I'm going to jump on it. Even if they're not big key issues, they're worth grabbing just because of the somewhat lower sort of, I guess, the bit of value to them. Not super valuable, but there's at least something to them. So awesome to have that. Now let's get into the Marvel. In that same box, I found this. This is more of a really low grade copy for it, but I don't see a lot of Copper Age or even Bronze Age Daredevils, but here we have this Daredevil number 221. Obviously, I don't really see any Daredevil, any covers that were drawn by David Mazzucchelli, who of course did Batman Year 1, 404 through 407 from Frank Miller, which I actually have a copy of number 1, by the way. Not the greatest looking copy. Actually, I would say not the super best looking copy, but it still looks really good besides a couple of little ticks here and there. But this one's a very low grade copy, very low grade, but it's readable, and I'm happy to have it. Again, also written by Dennis O'Neil, which really kind of surprised me that Dennis O'Neil was actually writing Daredevil, which I've always kind of considered Daredevil being like Marvel's answer to Batman. So it's very awesome. So Dennis O'Neil and David Mazzucchelli and Frank Miller, of course, would use David Mazzucchelli as well for what eventually pretty much revitalized Daredevil again with the Born Again issues. So this will be just way after this one. So, but still, I just could not pass up. And it's like the second issue, pretty much right after they killed off Heather Glenn. Yeah, I know that might be a spoiler, but because given that they just introduced the character anyways into a Born Again, but I don't know what her fate's going to be in the TV show, but I know that she had her fate met as part of in the comics, thanks to Dennis O'Neil. And speaking of more Daredevil, this was actually a $3 one. I was really trying to find this one again because of it's one of the last covers that Arthur Adams drew for Daredevil, but it is a very sharp looking copy of 239, again from like 1986. Arthur Adams, of course, this will be the first appearance for this character here, who is called Rockgut, a very, very obscure sort of killer character from this run. But for $3, normally a lot of the Daredevil's like $5 over at the shop, but this was a $3 comic from the Marvel 25th anniversary logo period, and you just can't go wrong. You can't go wrong, and I love me some Daredevil, one of my favorite Marvel characters, so I could not pass that up. Now, this was another one that really kind of surprised me when looking through that same box that I found the Daredevil 221 and the Savage Dragon, but it is Iron Man Annual number 3, which is, not only would this be the first original story pressed for a Iron Man Annual, because the first two are like reprints of like Tales of Suspense issues and maybe some early Iron Man issues, but this is the first original one, and this also serves as the only ever battle or meetup between Iron Man and Man-Thing. So again, this may not be a super high grade copy, but it's definitely a very good way upper mid-tier copy, and no spine roll at all on this one. Somehow, every time I go on eBay, I see some copies. I got some spine rolls. So this was like $5 at the shop, and of course, I got it right on the 25% off sale, so I just could not pass up a copy of Iron Man Annual number 3, and I don't really see any Bronze Age Iron Man at the shop. It's not very easy to come by for me, but man, this was a cool one for me to find. Again, Rick Buckler is, of course, the artist, and Sal Buscema is doing the interior arts, and just really awesome, by the way. This was actually more of a freebie, because when I got the Daredevil comic, and was there another comic I'm kind of missing? Oh, that's right. And the Hawk and Dove number 2, he kind of forgot to give me the sale because they were like doing it for 3 days, but he forgot to. So I ended up paying full price for like both the Daredevil 239 and Hawk and Dove number 2. So he let me have at least one free $3 comic, and this was pretty much a random sort of Punisher issue. Not too bad looking though for a copy. Again, number 46 is would be the one where Punisher basically fights Nazis. So not too bad looking copy anyway. Some of the Punishers I'll find over there, especially some earlier issues, may not be in the greatest condition, but this one's not too bad looking. So really kind of nice to have it and get it for free. It was a freebie for me. Speaking of actually some interesting Punishers, this is also not too bad in shape as well. Fairly much more of a 9.2 maybe for me, but it is Punisher number 99. This is actually close to the end of its run, the first ongoing series, and it of course is one of the more lower printed issues. Not super low printed compared to like Savage Dragon, but it's definitely low printed compared to some of the earlier issues, which obviously were much more printed high, especially when you get to the early 90s during the height of the Punisher craze. But this one, towards the end, a lot of the stuff started becoming like close to 40,000 maybe copies being pressed, or 30, at least very much close to 40,000. So it's really nice to find a very last or like lower printed run Punisher, especially being number 99. Frank Turan. I don't know if this would be considered the first appearance for the underground criminal character named Cringe, but it's still really cool. Frank Turan is the cover artist who's doing some of these with Michael Golden during this period. Of course, number 99 is before number 100, and that one's a big money issue these days. I've seen that kind of go for like 100 on eBay for some reason, but these are like the only lower the last sort of issues I've ever come across. So it was just for like $5. I could not pass it up. Finally, ending off with Wolverine number 6. It is, of course, a newsstand edition. This actually would be the first appearance for oh geez, I just kind of forgot the character, but like Prince Baron or something like that. He would of course appear more often in like the Wolverine issues. He would appear more often, but this actually turns out this is actually his first appearance. But the only thing that this issue has is that this actually is the only Wolverine comic where Todd McFarlane contributed like pinup art to, and it'll be like print on the very back of the comic. And now it's the only reason I wanted it was because of the Todd McFarlane pinup art. Again, Todd McFarlane's one of my favorite artists, because hence Spawn. But this was for $5, and it's a newsstand edition. Not super high grade, but it's definitely close to a low, upper mid grade copy. So it is still fairly nice looking to begin with. So I just could not pass up on it. So of course, Again, the Todd McFarlane pinup Wolverine art. So there you have it, folks. There's all the ones I've gotten recently. I'll always come back on here showing whatever stuff I picked up or whatever I want to talk about. So if you have any sort of comments on any of these that I've shown, always let me know in the comments section below. But until then, obviously, keep reading, keep enjoying, and keep digging. Take care, everybody.